What is up, everyone? Before we get into today's episode, just like last week, this episode is sponsored by Envious Audio. If you struggle with getting a solid mix or master done yourself, I can help you out with that. Not only that, but I go through a needs discovery process where we go through a quick phone call where we discuss your goals and your dreams and how we can get you in a faster time frame. I do this with just about every single one of my clients, regardless of if you get a mix or master done for me. So, if you ever need help, feel free to just shoot me an email over at christian@enviousaudio.com. But if you're interested in getting mixing and mastering done, head over to Envious Audio. You can check out my portfolio, check out the testimonials, fill out my contact form, reach out to me, and let's get you set up on a solid mix and master, possibly get you released and get you on your way to enhancing your career, enhancing your tracks as well. Thank you guys so much and enjoy this episode with Wired Sound Academy. Hey guys, welcome to Electronic Dance Money, your number one business resource for making money as electronic musicians and producers. Right, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Electronic Dance Money. My name is Christian Casito. I'm your host, as always, and today we've got Ryan Landis and Daniel Crespo in from Wired Sound Academy. What's up, guys?
What up, what up?
What's up, brother?
They I guess they run an entire academy that's based off of teaching people how to produce. If you've never produced before, they'll take you from a nobody to, I'm guessing, finishing tracks by the end of the entire course.
That's the goal, yeah.
They're 30 days, right? It's like a whole 30-day course that you go through. Class, I guess.
All of our courses, we try and keep it a month long because of the producer attention span.
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah. And then you guys also do DJing. So you also teach people how to DJ. Now, that's just strictly in person. You've got to be in. You guys are based in Fort Lauderdale, is that correct?
Yep, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, downtown.
Nice. Yeah, I think I saw a picture of your guys' little, the building that you're at. And I was like, ooh, that's a nice little corner there. It's a perfect little spot. Do you get people just walking down the street, kind of coming in?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What's cool is we're located inside a food hall. It's a giant warehouse with different food venues, from like ramen to burgers. So it's a very social space. And what's cool is it's a very welcoming classroom that we have. We have our mascot's a space astronaut.
Yeah.
And he's on the moon DJing. So we try and keep it fun and cool and appealing to all ages, which is our main motto. Yeah,
that's it is interesting getting a place down there. Like if you can manage to get a place like that downtown. I remember I grew up in Boise, Idaho. It was a small town, and now it's turning. I mean, everyone from California is kind of moving everywhere, but they're specifically going to Boise now as well. But there was a place downtown I remember that was similar to that one. I can't remember what it was called. But then there's another academy here in Austin as well. I think it's Dub something. I can't remember.
Is it Dub Spot maybe?
No, I don't think it's Dub Spot. No, I know Dub Spot is, but I don't think it's Dub Spot. It's a different place that I wish I could remember the name, but same thing. They're downtown, and if you're a producer or know the place, or you're into making any sort of music, if you see that, that's very attractive because you don't see those places around. So you guys are in an interesting position where you can, since you have a physical location, people can walk in and start talking to you, and you can make a sale right there on the spot.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, aside from that, like we actually have a venue in the food hall that our DJs are going to be playing at, and so that's a really cool thing to actually take a class and then get playing.
That's even more valuable. That's crazy because I don't see a lot of places doing that, and I think that's where you guys, that's a unique selling point that you guys have. I think it's really interesting that not only are you going to teach someone to, I'm guessing, spin on CDJs, do you guys also teach vinyl classes?
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
specialize. So I have to make sure.
Give them the classic teaching. But yeah, I mean, you could take someone from not ever DJing before to now they're playing a show at your guys' little venue there, which, again, I mean, if I had found a place like that when I was younger, I mean, I would be jumping all over that. My dad specifically would be like, yeah, let's get you in there because that sounds fucking badass. So, and I've never learned I've played on CDJs once.
Really?
Yes. I've only ever played on CDJs once. So even now, like, that's attractive to me.
Dude, we got a space waiting for you.
I know.
Yeah.
I gotta make it down there.
One of the main reasons we started Wired was because we traditionally took school also. We went to class for, Landis and I both went to DubSpot. And yeah, we loved what we learned. I took online, Landis took in person in New York. And I think what was missing for us with almost any kind of electronic music education was everyone gave us the info, but no one gave us like a community to be a part of, a place to actually take what we've learned and apply it, you know? So with Wired, it was like, why not create a hub for music down here in South Florida and also create a place that not just let students we don't let our students graduate and be like, all right, see you later. Mm-hmm. Our goal is to really provide them with opportunity and a network and a place to understand how the music industry works and how to turn it into a business also.
Yeah, so we're going to get into your guys' stories in just a minute, but I talk about this constantly in my podcast. I mean, it is drilled into anyone who listens to this podcast. It's fucking drilled in their goddamn head. It's all about adding value. And actually, I'm working with my buddy who's friends with these really big, I think they're Australian producers who tour and shit, but they have a badass live show. So I want to do an episode on providing value to your audience, literally an audience in front of you for a show, a live show, because there's ways to add additional value to people coming to see you at a concert or who happen to see you at a show. But this is something that I talk about pretty consistently about adding value. How can you help people out? How can you add value in addition to whatever you're doing? This is a philosophy I run my business on. This is the Go-Giver philosophy. This is I've recommended this book. Shit, this is probably the 10th time on my podcast to read the Go-Giver. It will change the way you look at running businesses. But it's really all about that. What are you also going to do? Because that is going to outshine anyone else. That's what makes you unique. That's what makes Wired sound unique, is how are you going to not just show someone how to DJ, but how can they turn that into a career? How can you give them the experience of a live show when they're done so that they don't freak out the first time they're playing somewhere else and their mentors and their teachers aren't there? Because the times that I played live shows, the first 10 to 15 minutes is the worst. It's like the hour leading up, and then the first 10 to 15 minutes into playing, I'm scared shitless, and I make the most fuck ups at that point. But then as soon as you calm down and you kind of get a feel for the momentum, you just get in a spot and then you're super comfortable. And then by minute 50, you're like, shit, I don't want to get off stage, but I got to get off stage in 10 minutes. And so it's
like no school will show you like how to transition from the DJ before, on stage while people are there. And that's what we're trying to do. Like, we're trying to be like, all right, you're at actual, like a live setting. The DJ before is about to end. You got to figure out how to mix in. And I've had some train wrecks myself with bad transitions. So
yeah, exactly. So it's like, that's it. Again, that's massive for you guys to be like, we don't want to, and I do the same thing with my clients and anyone who I come in that does mixing and mastering lessons with me. I'm the same way. I'm like, okay, I don't want to just bring you in to do a mix and master. Do you want to get your track signed? Well, let me talk to these record labels that I know that I can send to the owner and see what they think and if they want to sign it. So that's like 9 times out of 10, producers going in to get a mix and master aren't getting that from an audio engineer. They don't have an audio engineer being like, well, how can I take you from step A to step B when after your mix and master is done? And that's how you breed referrals. That's how you breed people who will nonstop talk about you and your business and keep coming back as a returning client. Now, granted, you guys aren't necessarily in that returning client space, but you're in the space of referrals. You're in the space of, you never know if you have a student who, I mean, like many people who have come out of DubSpot, and Crespo, you and I were looking at, I can't remember, you sent me a link to another site, but
Icon.
Yes, Icon. You never know when you get one of these students who's going to be a massive producer. And then when people are asking where you came from, they'll shout out Wired Sound Academy. And then next thing you know, you get 20 signups the next day because they shouted you out in a live stream on Twitch somewhere or some shit. So it's like, however you can provide more value to get people talking about you more is going to be wildly beneficial to you. Anyways, let's get into your guys' backgrounds a little bit. Ryan, I'd love to hear about how did you go from really not listening to, I don't know if you've listened to electronic music your whole life, but what's your whole story from beginning to end to where you are now?
Yeah, I was pretty young with it. Like, I'd say age 13, I was blasting Tiesto and Dojo for strings. Like,
oh, the classics. I love it.
It was hilarious. Yeah, my friends were like, it's just noise. Like, at that time, people were like, it was like Lil Wayne, stuff like that was massive. And it was just techno music. There wasn't like subgenres. They were like, oh, he likes techno music.
Yep.
But so I was like that kid growing up. And I'd say, so I started DJing actually pretty young as well. When I was like 13, I started, just doing like local birthday parties, stuff like that. My brother's, one of his good friends was a DJ, and I was like, oh, it looks like a fun way to like party and enjoy life. So I started taking lessons with him, and from there, just kind of learned my own thing. Did, like I said, like birthday parties, stuff like that. Kind of took a break for a year or two when I was dealing with all the whole being in high school fun.
Yeah.
Picked it up at age 17 again when I went to my first Ultra. This is like Ultra 2009, I'd say.
The good old days.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is like, I didn't really understand like, how DJs turned it into a career by making their own music. And I was like, okay, so if I really want to take this to the next level, at the time I was like, I could be a huge mashup DJ. Cause like, I don't know if you remember like Girl Talk or like.
That was a thing. It was in like the late 2010s.
It was the mashup DJs.
It was, yeah, you could be a DJ. And then it really was around the turn of the decade where it was like, no, you have to produce now. You also have to produce.
So, yeah, and I got really fortunate. I went to college at UCF only for like in my freshman year. But when I was there, I was trying to figure out how to like learn music production. And it just happened that one of like the only certified Ableton instructors for the Ableton software in all of Florida was in like 20 minutes away from me in Orlando.
Jesus.
So I just started taking privates with him. And from there, I got an internship in South Florida at a studio with Life in Color. I don't know if you, they were Dayglow at the time. It was like a paint company. And I was working for the head DJ, David Solano.
That's dope.
And that's where I met Crespo. That's where Crespo comes in the picture.
Hell yeah.
We met at that studio. And from there, just started releasing my own music, working with different record labels and building my reputation that way.
Hell yeah. I love it, dude. Yeah, going back on what you said when you first were getting into electronic music. Yeah, I do remember in like 2008, probably 2005 to 2010, or right around when Skrillex was getting big, it was just techno. That's all it was. Everyone just called it techno. And I can attest to being one of those people. Dude, my dad, super into electronic music way before I was. I was making fun of my dad for listening to electronic music, calling it techno and shitting on him for it. And then probably 5 years later, I'm like, no, I want to be a DJ and a producer now. And my dad was really my introduction into electronic music, which is so fucking cool. And so, through my entire career, my dad has been probably my biggest supporter by far, above everyone else. So it's
amazing to have.
It is. It really is incredible. But I love your story. It's it really is all about the consistency, which you've got it, As long as you're staying nice and consistent and keep moving forward, moving your goalpost forward as well. you'll keep working up that chain. How long have you been making music for?
So I'd say when I was 18, so freshman year of college, so 10 years now, but yeah.
10 years, man. It's always like once you start hitting that year 7, year 8, year 9, that's when the big transformations start happening. As long as you're consistent with it, you gotta
I'd say
have that.
last year was probably my biggest year for music wise on like Spotify, stuff like that. I had a couple tracks, hit like 2 million, 3 million.
That's huge. I mean, that is a massive success, dude. So congrats on that. I mean, that's hard fucking work. It takes a while to get there. I think that's a big reason why you see so many producers drop out by year 5, because they just don't feel like they're seeing any progress. But they're also not waiting till that year 7, year 8 mark, when that's when things really start to happen. Again,
I was in like a genre that died. I was like making Melbourne bounce. And
I fucking love Melbourne. My first good track was a Melbourne bounce track that I made. That was my first release too.
Yeah, I'd say like year 5, like I started hitting it a little bit with that style, and then it just like immediately dropped off the face of the earth, and like you couldn't put out bounce. So I was like, okay, I got to rethink everything now and kind of reformulate what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, those are the growing pains that take you from being an amateur to actually moving into, a semi-pro light to a professional space, is that being forced to change and adapt and move on to something new, because that's when you really learn about what you can do. Anyways, Crespo, let's get into your background. Where did you start, and how did you get to where you're at? You've got some crazy fucking accolades too.
Well, this guy is very humble. He's got a record coming out, spinning records in 3
Dude, wait, hang on. Whoa. You've got a spinning track coming out?
Yeah, man. This Friday.
This motherfucker. Oh my God.
I just
Jesus.
wanted to jump in and put that in there.
Yeah.
Plug. Yeah.
Holy humble pie. Jesus Christ. Well, at the end, we'll get in plugs, and you can plug that track coming up. Well, I'll say it now. If anyone wants to learn from a spin-in artist, go to wiredsoundacademy.com. That'll be, I'll post all the show notes as always at enviousaudio.com/episode 33. But let's get into your background, Crespo, and we'll get into that in a little bit.
What's really cool is our stories intertwined at some point, like he mentioned. But I was born in Chicago. I moved to Miami, Florida when I was 6. So I have a little bit of background from both of those cities. I started DJing in high school for fun, nothing serious. I actually didn't even own equipment. I just had a buddy who would let me use his. And my sister was part of a hip hop club at UCF in Orlando. And I noticed this DJ using vinyl, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. I want to learn exactly what he's doing. Fast forward a few years later, I went to FSU for school. And I decided to ask my parents for an $1,800 loan to buy some Technic 1200s and a mixer. Had no idea what the hell to do with them. Serato had just came out, so everybody was trying to be a DJ, which was cool. And yeah, I really just at that time wanted to learn, and no one I could find was really into vinyl or teaching DJing. So I had to learn the hard way. I'd go to any party I could find, whether a friend was having a birthday or a frat party, and be like, hey, you guys want some music? And I'd set up shop and just rock. And I was terrible. I did not know how to transition anything. A few years later, a DJ named RBK heard me and was like, hey, man, I'd love to show you the ropes. And so he took me under his wing and showed me how to transition and beat match and use pitch and scratch. And he's actually one of the instructors now at Wired Sound Academy. So DJing started to take off for me at FSU because it's such a big network of students. Started making mixtapes, and at that time, no one was really doing that. So I would actually just hand out CDs to people because SoundCloud didn't exist. It kind of caught on like wildfire throughout the state of Florida. So that was a big help. And then I started to meet people in Tallahassee at FSU. One was David Solano, the Life and Color DJ. He's like, hey, do you want to be an intern for me? And I said, yeah, sure. I'd love to learn the ropes and get more into production because that's what he was doing at the time. And so I went down to Boca and I hopped in the studio and I met this young man named Ryan Landis. And from there, we connected as friends and people who were avidly into electronic music. And our stories just started to grow from there. We became really cool. And I would say DJing really started taking off my senior year of college, where I decided to leave school. And I had 4 credits left. Probably one of the toughest decisions I've ever made. But I had someone who represented other DJs from Miami up in Tallahassee for a big weekend. It's versus FSU. It's a big football game. They were at the club and they heard me DJ, and someone came running up to me and was like, "You're fucking amazing. How are you mixing hip hop and electronic music and house and Latin music and all kinds of records?" I was like, "Oh, this is just the way I was taught." She's like, "I would love to bring you down to Miami." I met my first agent, and so she brought me to Miami. I dropped out. I was like, "Dad, I'm sorry. I'm taking this $1,800 I borrowed, and I'm showing you that I could do it." And my parents were not very accepting of this. Moved down to Miami. Long story short is I really struggled down here. It's a tough place to DJ. I got my butt handed to me,
There's a lot of competition.
A lot of competition, and it's such a different crowd than a college crowd. We were listening to Steve Aoki, Warp, and Benny Benassi. People down here were listening to everything, not just that. I didn't really take the time to learn and do my research, but I got my ass handed to me a couple times. And my agent, Olivia, at the time was like, "Hey, look, you really have to spend time becoming a professional at this. So go out every night, learn what you're doing, learn what the DJs are playing." So from there, it took about 2 years to really open for other DJs and play for free. And I started breaking through. I started playing some really good sets and just progressed into becoming a bigger nightclub DJ to nowadays, rocking in Vegas and Chicago, or was before COVID. Holding residencies across the US and the world, which was a lot of fun. And then just got picked up a couple years ago to tour with young Jaden Smith, Will Smith's son. So it's
crazy.
Awesome. Yeah, from big nightclubs to we went on tour with Fall Out Boy. It's been awesome. And I guess I could maybe be that exception of one of those DJs who didn't really make much music, but still found a career in it. But side note, I forgot to mention this. We both did. We started making music together in Landis.
Oh, okay.
And that actually led to us playing some gigs at EDC Orlando and EDC Las Vegas. Yeah, as our time interning, we're like, "Hey, why don't we make music together?"
Yeah, we had some Hardwell on air support, which is like
no
peak of like
it was a
2000. What is it? 2012.
Yes,
you got Hardwell on air. You like made it,
dude. I probably listened to you guys then, because that like 2012, 2011 to 2012. I was a religious Hardwell listener. I listened to
in the dance community.
Yes,
it was like.
I mean, that's why he was #1 in 2013. He was an icon. Talk about someone who was just revolutionary. I mean,
our group was Landis and Crespo, and we peaked at Hardwell on air.
That's it.
Oh yeah, right.
No,
God,
we had so much fun doing it, and so we've just become literally best friends, and we work together as musicians and business partners. It's been like such a cool relationship that I've gotten from music. I
think Crespo definitely shows me a lot on like the DJing side that I don't fully understand, and I try and in return show him the production side. That's kind of the yin and yang.
Anyone who listened to the episode of the Los Padres, this is exactly what we talked about in the first episode, part 1. We talked about how important it is when you're looking for a duo, not to just find 2 people who are both really good at the same thing. Sure, that could work, but then you're usually both also pretty bad at the thing that you need fixed, like that you need to be good at. So it's always best to find someone who's good at one thing that you're bad at, and you're good at one thing that they're bad at. And then you come together and you make such a strong unit. It's all about focusing on your strengths more than your weaknesses. And if you can find someone or build a team that can focus on your weaknesses so you don't have to, you can double down on what you're really good at and become even better at that. And that's what it's really all about, especially with a duo. The worst thing you'd want to do is rush into a duo with someone you don't have a lot of chemistry with that you think is going to be even a collaboration. I mean, shit can get really rough and turn into a headache, and then you're wasting your time on a track that you're never going to finish and that's never going to be anything.
True, man. So, I mean, we found a perfect balance in this relationship of business, friendship, and producing, you know.
It's unique. It's just like Gino and Carlos. I mean, they are in sync with each. It's fucking crazy how you could lie to me and tell me that they're brothers and I'd fucking believe you, because of their chemistry and just the way they work together it is something super unique. But yeah, how did you guys start Wired Sound Academy? What got you guys to open up? I know, Crespo, you're kind of getting into this, but what was ultimately your inspiration? When did you guys start it, and how did that journey look?
It kind of came from a place of, well, for one, like I heard about this food hall project, and I've always wanted to try, to build a school, because I really felt like it was something that was lacking in the South Florida area. That, yeah, they had like SAE, but that's like a $25,000 program that's
right.
insane, and there was nothing in between. And I feel like South Florida is such a thriving music community that had that potential. So it was coming from a place of like wanting to build a school, but also build up the music community here and make more of a collective, and more of like finding other musicians in the area.
Community.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and building up that community. And so when I heard about the food hall opening up, I thought that would be like the coolest place to open something like this. And then I approached Danny about doing the DJ side, because I was like, yeah, I can do the production stuff, and start up on the production classes, and then you could run kind of the DJ side of things.
I like that. I think that, again, working on your guys's what you guys are good at in comparison to, it just, yeah, yin and yang, it works in sync with each other. It really is perfect. And I think the affordability is interesting too. I think that is because you do look at some of the, tech schools, I guess you could call them, for music production, or look at Full Sail. You go to music production at Full Sail, you're going to be paying $150,000 minimum. And how much are you actually going to get out of it for 4 years of going there? You might make good networking stuff, but you could also work the same amount of time actually building a portfolio, like really putting the work in and grinding, and get just as good of a network, if not better, because you're actually building relationships and bonding with people. Not to say that you're not doing that in that educational environment, but I'm more of the believer of really building something yourself, working at it really hard, and building a natural network, through building of relationships, rather than someone kind of hoisting you in these networks because you've paid into it. That's not as natural, and you never know if you're going to really mesh well with people.
And I think our goal really was, we took what we learned, and because we're students of actual schools, so we took what we learned, and we definitely wanted to speed up the process, because a lot of the stuff we did learn was beneficial, but in today's day and age, it's like we have to move so much quicker. So why not provide what you need, everything you need, and on top of that, learn from people who have actually made a huge career through the business. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things we really push, is we want to show you how we created business out of music.
Yeah, I think that in and of itself is very valuable. If you can teach someone not just the technical skills, like I would say, it's pretty easy to teach someone how to produce, because you can give them the tools. You can teach them, this is how a compressor works, and you can teach it relatively easy. This is how melodies work. This is how you draw on the piano roll. Like, you can teach all this stuff that is real, and from there, it's really just about practice outside of the actual class. What's more difficult to teach is how to build a career out of something. Because, building the career part has a lot to do with the motivation of the individual, and what they want, and what their goals are, and their dreams, and, what they want in 10 years. That's a little bit different. And if you're going to a university for 4 years and spending $150,000, and they're not at least helping you build your career from the day you step in that building to when you leave, there's an issue there. There's a major issue. And I think you find more of these academies like you guys, or some of these tech schools, where you might spend $20,000 in a year, but you also look at the people who come out of that, and most of the time, the day you step in there, they're teaching you to build a career. They're not just bringing you in to teach you about musical theory and how contracts work. You know, like they're bringing you in to show you the technicals, making sure that you're being accountable and working on the stuff. And then they're also teaching you what it takes to build a career, how to network, how to actually strive towards building a business, what it looks like to build an actual business. In that, I mean, that's what this entire show is about, is taking your fucking career seriously. Because if you're not looking at your music career as a business, you're already failing. So that in and of itself needs to be laid down immediately as a foundation. This is a business. You have to treat it as a business. If you don't, you're kind of just aimlessly walking through this thing of music, which is fine. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't want to do that, but if you're listening to this podcast and you're 33 episodes in, I think you want a career. I hope you do. Otherwise, have fun just listening to this. But yeah, I think those goals are super important, especially when you're working with an academy. The only way to see success, I think, or one of the best ways to see success, is how successful your students are. I think making sure they're successful is going to show how successful you guys are. So
we want to breed the next generation of DJs and producers to be not lazy ones, or ones that like expect it all to be given to them. So like that's our goal here, is really show you everything you need, even from not only, let's say, mixing and mastering, beat matching. It's how do you flow creatively? How do you get creative when you're in a bad space? Like things like that too, on top of everything else. So we're very hands-on, and we like to create. Our goal is to really create a family. Like you graduate here, and you're always welcome to our office hours. You're welcome to use the studio space. Like that's the goal.
So I actually collabed with one of my recent graduates from one of my production classes, and we did a remix of the Falling track by Trevor Daniel. Just like a free remix, but it was his first release. So, trying to give him a platform to start to launch off from. Super talented, this guy named Poria. And it actually I know it was listened to by the head of Interscope. And he liked it. I think they might be doing like a DJ release, like where they send it out to their DJs. But from
just
Interscope.
A promo.
And just the fact that now Poria's name, as well as mine, is in front of the president of Interscope, leads to an opportunity that,
Yes. That is so important. It's, this was actually something I was talking to a client of mine who we sent a track over to a big record label, and one of the owners listened to it, who's a big producer, and they liked it. They thought it was good. They didn't want to sign it necessarily. They want to hear more from him. But, and I told him, I was like, this, and he's never signed a track before. And so I was telling him, like, this is huge. I mean, sure, you didn't get a track signed. Of course we want to get it signed, but your name is in front of that guy's face, and he likes it, and he wants to hear more from you. That in and of itself is a massive victory. And yeah, if you can, this also brings up another point, is the, your teachers are very important in these circumstances, especially when when you go to these sorts of classes or academies. It's not like you're just paying pennies. You're paying a decent amount of money for some good knowledge. Especially when you go to a university, it's very important to recognize who the fuck your teacher is. Because if your teacher's not involved in the scene, if they're not producing and releasing, and they're not talking to labels, and they're not networking, that doesn't look good. Because what are they going to do for you, and how are they going to add additional value? Not saying that you deserve it, but the point is if you are going to a good place like Wired Sound Academy, you've got teachers that are interacting with you. They're willing to collaborate with you. They're willing to send your tracks to people that you don't have connections to, I love that. I love that a lot. What was it like building the curriculum for you guys? That's where I get strung up on. If I were to build a course, is the curriculum has to be, how'd you come up with it?
So for production, I actually collaborated with a Ableton certified instructor, this guy, Mike Cupino, another super talented dude, who also, he works a lot with like ad agencies and stuff like that, music on the back end. So I had him kind of do like the actual like technical side. You know, because I'm great at like explaining creative concepts, but the actual technical side, I don't have. I didn't have the bandwidth at the time to kind of explain the way that a certified Ableton instructor would. So he kind of headed that up, and then I took that curriculum and just kind of added the music business side, the creative portion, the stuff that isn't usually talked about in most schools, traditional schools. Just my personal experience and how I think that will help students.
And so it's 30 days. Are you bringing in students every single day to teach them new concepts, or how does that schedule look like? Because 30 days is a short time.
Yeah. So for the pro production one, which we have like online or in person, but for production, there's only one in person, which is the pro production. Before it was a little different before COVID, but we're still trying to be cautious, and we want to cap our classes at like 6-7 people max.
Right.
So we have one in-person pro production. That one is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, from 3 to 6, for 4 weeks straight. So it's a decent amount of time, and we find that by the end of that, students are very knowledgeable in production.
I mean, that's 3 hours out of 3 days out of the week is solid studio time. 30 days of that especially will build a really good habit. And then the DJing side, is that, because I think Crespo, I think we were talking about this the other day, isn't that one way shorter?
Yeah, it's definitely shorter. It's 2 days a week. They're 3-hour courses still. What we did is with the curriculum is both are very similar in the sense that we realized like a 3-hour class is a long time, but it's also just enough to keep attention and still get these concepts through, because when you're teaching a concept like beat matching, it's a lot of practice and trial and error, just like with when you're messing with sidechain EQing and different things like that. So we realized the 3-hour class seems like a lot, we break in between, but it's a great time because it goes by really quick. And for us, the DJing side of the curriculum was a lot of trial and error before we launched Wired. We had a couple friends who decided, hey, we'll spend a month learning how to DJ with you guys. Luckily, DJ RBK, our head instructor here, he's responsible for teaching almost 400 students on the Carnival Cruise Line fleet. He was very well versed in teaching. He taught me, he taught a bunch of other DJs, and he had a very big background in teaching the concept in general. So we took his knowledge and developed a curriculum for, someone who didn't know anything about DJing, how to press play, what Serato is. And we found that, with his expertise in the technical side and then mine in the marketing and branding side, combine those curriculums together, and we came together with a really good 4-week curriculum. Also.
The DJing is, man, I've tried to teach people how to DJ. I have so much respect for you guys teaching DJing, because the amount of patience it takes. I can handle the teaching of production stuff. Like I said, I don't necessarily think it's not, if you know what you're doing, and if you know what you're doing as far as production goes, you can kind of show them the way. You can give them things to work on, and then as long as they work on those things and they come back, you can kind of keep pushing it and see and moving, move the goalposts. But with DJing, it really is something that you either get or you don't. I feel like there's a mixture of, unless you don't get it right away, there's a lot of practice involved in it and a lot of tedious time.
Yes. Yeah. And I was actually one of those students that didn't get it right away, and it took a couple months till like these light bulbs started clicking, where all that I had learned was really just me like having to take it and repetitively practice it until it was like, oh, I get the sound structure now of a house intro. And now I know how to mix 2 records perfectly because their intros are the same and stuff like that.
It's the consistency, man. It really is the consistency. And I think that is really important with you guys doing like 30-day courses, because you're right. You spend just enough time to hit everything that you need to hit, but it's also not a commitment for 6 months or an entire year that, by month 3 or 4, people might be burnt out and exhausted and they're like, fuck, this is a lot. And then when they hit that point too, going to a university or school, like we were discussing earlier, 1, you're spending a lot of money. 2, you might be spending a lot of time on things that you might not ever use or you might not ever be great at. And so I think that is really, you guys do have something special where you're hitting that sweet spot, that 30 days, that 9 hours a week where you're just getting in enough to teach them what they need. And then if they just keep with the consistency, I mean, boom, you'll fucking skyrocket from there.
Yep, and that's the goal, especially with our DJs. After, if you graduate our pro DJ 4-week course, we have different venues here at the food hall that we instantly plug our DJs into. And it's like, look, now it's time to take what you've learned and not go home and forget about it. It's, hey, you're going to have to start learning how to play in front of others and, really getting that experience that took me so much time to really understand and get.
Well, I mean, let's go right into the next topic, which is valuing knowledge, because this is what we're talking about here. Is this is why you go to a course. This is why you go to school. This is why you go to an academy, and this is why you pay so much money to do these things, because you're paying the knowledge of someone else. How do you guys go about valuing your knowledge? Because this is a topic that is very it's kind of up in the air. It's hard to value knowledge. It's hard to put a price tag on your experiences and what you know and how to charge for that sort of thing. So we don't have to give out how much your courses cost, but I am curious about how you guys come to the conclusion of, okay, this is what we're going to charge for these 30 days because, this is the value of what we know and what we're teaching.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes from, like I said, a point of trying to be a way more affordable option than what's out there, but still give that in-person academy experience and still obviously cover our bills. But I think we are way lower than the other schools out there because, I mean, part of it is, yes, our courses are condensed, but I feel like the other courses or the other schools might kind of drag it out on purpose to try and make it more expensive. And so we were just like, all right, well, why don't we just make it more condensed so more people can actually do it? And so, yeah, so I think we're just trying to price it right. I mean, we're still feeling it out, I think, a little bit, right?
Yeah. I think when it came to pricing, it was how can we get straight to the point and deliver the knowledge that's needed and trim the fat and also not have to break anyone's bank and show them like, hey, our main goal is not just to make money here. It's really to also provide the knowledge that's necessary and value, so that, hey, this place was awesome. Let's go refer my friend. Back to what you were talking about, The Giver. What's the name of the book?
The Go Giver. Mm-hmm.
Go Giver. I'm a firm believer in providing knowledge and value at an affordable price to drive more revenue and more value.
The thing is for us, like, I'm still an artist. I'm still always going to be releasing music. This isn't my, this is my end all be all, but I really think that, like I said, South Florida has such potential for a music community that if we could be a part of building that up, then that would be something super special that I want to be a part of,
Yeah. I think this is something that gets lost with a lot of younger people too. Younger producers or people who want to be producers, and they get scared by price tags sometimes. I'm not talking about gear. Let's not talk about, because I think gear is a bad thing to invest your money in at a young in your career. Like, I'm finally at a point in my career where I'm hitting this knowledge gap where I'm thinking, now's my time that I want to start investing in some outboard gear. I want to start buying some actual hardware compressors and limiters because I can actually utilize that stuff in the proper way. I would not want to buy one year one into producing. That would be a waste of $2,000. Like, it would not be good. What's better to spend that $2,000 on is knowledge. That's investment in an actual thing that's going to return on the investment. And this is something that I think a lot of producers should be paying attention to. The way they're spending their dollars is what's going to return that investment. What could you spend that money on that's actually going to get you a return and a surplus? How are you going to make more out of that? And knowledge is the number one thing that you should be investing in. Like we said before, I don't necessarily agree about going to a school that for 4 years to get a music production degree. I don't think that has a lot of value. What I do think has a lot of value is things like your guys' academy, where you go for 30 days, network like a fucking beast. I mean, you can learn from people who are big players in the industry. And if you grow with those people and build relationships with them, that's a huge investment on your career, because that, however much that costs could probably double itself in just a few years if you stick with it and you keep growing with those kinds of people. What does the future look like for you guys? I personally, I think I was talking to you guys about this. I think you guys should package an entire online course that people can buy, and not necessarily classes, but what's the future for you guys, and where do you want Wired Sound to go? And I mean, how does that look like for the scene in general? Because I have I'll let you guys start and then I'll go from there. But
yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very weird time for music. So I think we really just pivoted to online in the past like month or two. Because before we were all in person, because I do think a lot of people enjoy the in-person experience, getting to talk to classmates. So it's going to be a combination of in-person and online classes. And at the same time, just trying to build up the Wired name, and build our brand.
I personally think like our goals for the next couple of years is to really develop online. I think what I've been loving learning is online lately, because I'm at home during quarantine working from my computer nonstop. Sometimes I have 3 screens up where I'll have Udemy up learning about ad marketing and then making a record at the same time. So I think what I would love is what you're saying, is to really have a packaged course, especially for DJing. Teaching DJing online is very hard, especially live. I've done private lessons, but more than 2 or 3 students, it's really tough. So what I would love is to develop a course that people could buy for maybe $250, $300, scale it so that, we can have hundreds of people into this and learning how to DJ. The only thing I will say is I personally am a firm believer in in-person classes, because you feel like, you're paying to be there and learn. Where with these courses that I would love to launch, it's going to be you're your own boss. So you got to make sure you're learning.
Yeah, there's a different aspect to in-person. You're more accountable. Especially when you spend more money, you're definitely more accountable to pay attention to that sort of stuff. There is a completely different feel to it when you're learning in person and you've got your teacher in front of you physically showing you something, and you can fire off questions immediately and get a response immediately. There is something that is invaluable to that. Like you can't, there's not a lot of price tags you can put on it where it's like unreasonable, but the pack, I think I sent this over to you, Crespo, was Donation by Wyatt. I can't remember his last name, but Wyatt has a podcast as well, and he's got a course. That one's more geared to the average musician who's a singer, songwriter, producer. It's a more plethora instead of niche down into like an EDM producer. But then you've also got Bill Gates's production course, which I don't know if you guys looked into that one at all, but that one's a whole, he's got a beast of a community built up over there. And I think that is the important aspect when you do package these courses, is the community aspect that you build to it. I think courses involved, master classes like Dead Mouses and Armin's, I think these are just the beginning. The industry for courses online is a $300 billion industry, and it's only growing. So, if you look at that, it's probably in the next 20 years going to be looking at close to $1 trillion industry, and that's on education. I think courses online like this are going to significantly change the way you learn, especially with going to colleges and schools, especially when you start looking at places like Udemy, where you can get a $10 course and get a certification and 30 hours of education. And a lot of the times to get hired at places, that's all they give a shit about seeing. And they'll hire you on and bring you on low level, but you'll be immediately getting experience. And so the 4 years you would have spent in school, you could be working in the actual field and be at the same level, if not higher. And I think you're going to see the same thing with music. I think you're going to see where you can spend $3,000 on a course or something, or even less than that. You could spend $500-$600 on a packaged course that you'll have for life, and learn to be a really good fucking producer in as little as 30 hours And as long as you spend 3 or 4 months and you're involved in this community, you can build an audience. You can build a fan base with those people and get your music shared to a lot of players. I think that's where the future is going to start moving. I think YouTube Academy is going to YouTube Academy is always going to be there, but I don't think that's going to be the main course of like getting education. I think, and a lot of the times people buy into the courses because of the people teaching, not necessarily what's being taught. It's the personalities and the learning from people like you guys.
Yeah, and that goes back to like the perfect point. I think one of the biggest things in anything you're trying to sell or promote, it's like, what value are you adding? So like our goal at Wired is, if for the future, is if we do courses, that's one of our main goals, be a big player in the online space. Let's provide some value other than just, hey, here's some classes. So if we do buy our classes, we're going to find ways to provide other value outside of just here's technical stuff.
Yeah. That is massive. That's because if you look at El Gates's producer Dojo, I mean, he sets you on a craft, on a path to be full time in music, where you're teaching at the dojo. Your first releases are through his record label, and he really builds you up. He's got a really cool marketing system too with how that looks, and you get belts like in jiu-jitsu or like karate. You get belts as you progress throughout your career. And he wants to take you from a white belt to a black belt in production and music business. So it's super unique. The guys over at No Face, they're kind of doing the same thing with their academy. I mean, you're seeing a lot of these places evolve into this structuring of building a community and building a really unique system, and how they're going to take you from being nobody or not producing at all to being a professional producer and possibly full-time as a career. Well, do you guys have anything else you'd like to add to the subject? I think we're pretty much it. You guys can plug some stuff too, if you don't have anything else you want to add.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be really interesting the next year to see how we adapt as a music community to the whole COVID situation. Like myself, like I didn't really talk about this at all, but I've been licensing some of my music out for like ads for advertising. We just got like a Polish beer commercial and stuff like that. So I think you're going to see a lot of, and that's part of the stuff we want to talk about in like music production. And like, if you're not a massive artist, how else can you make a career of it? You can hit up advertising agencies and sell your music to them.
It is exactly what this podcast is about. It is all about how you can make money in different areas of the industry.
Like, yeah, musicians are going to really have to adapt the next year or so until everything, starts to normalize a little bit more. And that's one of the things that we're going to try and teach the students here is how you can adapt and still make a living off of it without being an artist or touring DJ necessarily. And then I'll plug my on Spin Records. It's called It's a Bop. Super hyped on it. So,
when's it getting released?
This Friday. So what would that be? It'd be August. What is that? 6th? 7th.
Perfect. The episode is coming out August 7th. So all of you listening right now, go look up. You go just by your full name, Ryan Landis.
No, it's under Landis.
Under Landis. All right, go on Spotify, look up Landis, and check out It's a Bop. That's fucking,
yes, sir.
Dude, good for you, spinning. That is huge. Congrats.
Past 4 releases were like Hexagon, like 2 million plays.
Yeah, slow and steady, man.
He's been crushing it. What's so cool to watch with Landis, and this is like a testament to other DJs and producers out there, is like he was consistent about it and never gave up on it. It was like, hey, I don't care if a record only gets 50,000 plays. I'm going to keep working and getting better at it and pushing and networking to where, hey, now I can say, hey, I have a record on Hexagon and it has 2 million plays, and that's something that's invaluable, I think, is consistency.
Yeah, the consistency is the most important part. You get no success without the consistency. You have to put in the fucking hours. You got to put in the work. If you don't, you're not going to go anywhere. Nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, it's so true. So, I mean, that's why we're here at Wired too, is really to just teach what we've learned and teach the experience. And, it took us 10 to 15 years to get to where we're at. We'd love to be able to speed that process up through knowledge and value and give that to our students, So we're here and we really appreciate being on here, man. We love business.
Thank you.
Music. you know?
Yeah, of course. I think the COVID thing too, Ryan, you bring up a really important part, is that there is a lot of growing and evolving you have to do as a musician. You got to figure, this is uncharted territory for everyone. This is also an opportunity for you to fucking grow as an artist. If you're not working your hardest right now, you're going to be way behind when things come back to normal, because I've been shit. Dude, I've been cooped up all of us have been cooped up in our houses since March, and really since the close down and shit. That's when I got introduced to Chris. That's when I got introduced to No Face and then Los Padres. And now, you know, Crespo, you and I are working together on Chromatic. And so it was since the lockdown that shit really changed, and I was like busting. I was trying to get in with these people and work as hard as I can, because we're all kind of in the same position. Now when lockdown's done, I'll have the opportunity to go meet everyone in person, hang out, and then further that and continue to network. So, I mean, if you're not working like that, you gotta figure something out. If you don't figure it out and kind of wade through the water, you're gonna start drowning.
Yeah, and I think the biggest lesson I learned from all this was I had all my attention on one thing, and that was DJing and making sure I played the best show, moved on to the next city, and had the next gig. And you know, I started to develop this entrepreneurial mind that, hey, like, let's develop other pivots and other places to make money in music. Still my main passion, but you know, let's not put every egg in one basket, because look at now, you know, it's tough. For DJing, like, majority of my income now comes from the school and other side business and music. So it's important, I think, to teach young generations and anyone who's wanting to learn that, like, there's so many ways to make money off of the industry that we work in. It's just exploring it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I say it time and time again, but the reason why I started this podcast has been out for a year now, and I've been spouting for a year. Expand. I mean, don't just want to produce and tour, and I wasn't being like, because something like this will happen, but when stuff like this happens, you have to sit back and you have to swallow the bitter medicine and go, shit, like, I do need to outsource stuff. Like, I need to be working in different facets within the industry to make an income. Otherwise, yeah, like you said, if you're just a DJ, now's the worst time to be just a DJ.
I have a lot of friends who are having trouble right now.
Yeah, I know a couple of people who are just DJs, and it's not fun. It's a scary time to be just a DJ. But you know, if you're doing stuff like what you guys are doing, not to say that it's entirely comfortable, but I mean, at least you're making an income. That's what's important.
And you're growing.
Doing what we love.
Crespo, do you have anything to plug? Obviously, the record label.
So we just launched a record label, me and the guys from Los Padres, called Chromatic Records. Super excited for that. And then the first release is actually a record that I'll be putting out called Haciendolo. Super excited about this because I haven't put out music in a couple years. So very excited. It was one of those things where, like, oh, I'm afraid to share my work. But now with the record label, it's like, hey, I take the power in my own hands. I don't have to listen to an A&R like, oh, this isn't good enough. I just want to put my own stuff out. So, yeah, August 13th. Love for everybody to check that out if you could. Thanks for having us, man. It's been awesome.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for coming on, guys. This was a ton of fun. A lot of good knowledge on just education, what it means to get an education in music. And I appreciate you guys coming on. And yeah, this is a ton of fun.
Of course.
For sure.
All right, take care, guys. See ya.
All right, later, man.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into this episode of Electronic Dance Money. As always, head to enviousaudio.com/episode 33 to check out the show notes. A link to everything we talked about in today's episode will be included there, including Wired Sound Academy, so you can go check out some of their online courses and Landis's new track on Spinnin' Records. Again, congratulations to him. We should all support him for that, because that is a massive accomplishment. I think we can all recognize that. Head on over to facebook.com and look up Electronic Dance Money Community. Join that community and start talking and getting involved there. Thank you guys so much. Can't wait for the next episode. We've got a return guest that's going to be a lot of fun. I think you guys will all appreciate and respect it. Take care and have a wonderful day.